Last time we talked about many things regarding health, like what are the elements of health, and we looked at a few different elements. I want to also mention a categorization that I think is very close to what we talked about last time. It is from Precision Nutrition. This is a very big nutrition coaching company from the US, and they have the concept, they use the concept of deep health, and they say it has 6 domains, which are relational, which means being connected and authentic with others, feeling supported and like you belong. And the second one is existential, which is feeling a sense of meaning and purpose in life. Then there is mental, being alert, focused, competent, and thoughtful. Learning, remembering, and solving problems well. Then there is physical, feeling vibrant, energized, and thriving, performing and functioning well. Then there is emotional, experiencing a full range of emotions and expressing them appropriately. And then there is environmental, knowing your everyday surroundings support your health and well-being. My feeling is that this fits quite well with the models that we talked about last time, the biopsychic social model and things that are close to it. But if anyone disagrees, let me know. I don't know if we last time talked about also the hierarchy of needs from Maslow. Is also pretty known, I think. Also interesting to look into this. Is like a hierarchy that builds on top of each other. There's like the first one is physiological, then safety, then love/belonging, then esteem. That means needs, individual needs, and self-actualization. In German, Selbstverwirklichung. So there's also a categorization of, it's not of health, but I think it's very connected. The needs and health. For me, it feels that this is pretty close to another. And I think also last time in the end we talked about, or at least I've written as a note, and if I remember right, I want to talk about it this time, that health can be also something where we can spend like too much thought on, too much worry about, and this then can become a problem in itself. Last year I became sick more often than what I'm used to, because I'm used to not really being sick. And last year last year in the beginning of this year, it was actually, so it was around like 12 months long, this period, where I got the tonsillitis 4 times, and 4 times I had to take antibiotics. And for me, it was quite annoying, because I don't want, obviously, not to take this stuff, but I had quite strong swelling of the tonsils, like even that I couldn't open my jaw anymore. It was quite intense. So there was not really a way around the antibiotics. And I realized I got, because this is like so annoying, it really knocks you out for several days, and then you have to recover from the antibiotics. You cannot like be physically too active for a time, and also then after you have to be like a bit careful. That I got like very concerned about about my health, and it was a bit of a play between like being positively concerned and having too much concern, and this sort of creating a self-fulfilling prophecy, yeah, of thinking, oh shit, like I feel, you know, I touch the throat area, and I can feel, maybe it's a bit of swelling, like, okay, now is there something, do I get sick, like I have to be very careful now, and blah 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 blah. It's a bit like when you're injured and you start to think too much about this injury, and it becomes very like it takes a lot of your energy, and there's this balance that has to be found. Like, you have an injury, okay, you want to heal it, so obviously you have to spend time with it, time and energy, but if it consumes you fully, then it's too much, and it can also become a self-fulfilling prophecy in that sense, that the injury might not go away because you care too much about this injury. So I had this feeling that it's very, like, it's a struggle to find this balance, yeah, because I felt, okay, it's good if I take care, like if I make sure, okay, I'm not too, like I don't have too much stress and so on and so forth, and you know, or the right amount of stress, and that it's just everything fits in a good way to avoid this sickness coming back. And then on the other hand, I was always thinking, like, okay, like when is it too much, being concerned and thinking about it, and so on and so forth. So that's definitely a thing. I believe that health can be something, can be also too much in the mind, and it become very, you know, like almost neurotic, like someone that is washing his hands every 5 minutes or something like this. Yeah, Peter, thank you for helping me that I don't need to speak the whole time. Oh no, now Peter's gone. What happened? Oh, did I press the wrong thing? I thought I'm getting out of having a monologue here. Okay, maybe he's coming back. I don't know if I pressed the wrong thing or what just happened. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so exactly, yeah, about like spending too much time also thinking about health, and can become almost a neurotic thing. And this can also be on the layer of injuries, that you feel a bit of a pain and you think you're injured or it's getting worse again. And it's really a bit of a line that you need to, yeah, balancing on the rope. So you want to spend time with it, but not too much. Peter, there you are back. I think you dropped out for a moment. So you wanted to say something.
Where was I? Hypochondria. I'm not sure if it's the same in English, but like people who are very concerned of getting sick all the time and washing their hands all the time, as you said, or using disinfectant all the time. And I think it's, yeah, perhaps it is at the point where the concern of your health is getting so life-consuming that you orient everything you do towards it. That might be a point where it's too much concern about the health. Whereas, well, as you said, there's a good quantity or good measure to concern yourself with your health, but you can overdo it, and then because for some people it really gets the focus of all they do. And I guess that might be the point where it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
Is it clear in any way?
Yeah, 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 very clear. Yes, Maxi or the school in general. I don't know who will speak. Who is it?
Hey, this is Felix. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Pretty nice. Yeah, I just want to add to this washing the hands that this in itself is kind of an illness or a sickness already, right? So it's more like a compulsion, and the person who does this cannot help him or herself. So yeah, that's interesting that in this phenomenon in itself is already beyond the health. So the person is not just concerned about health, but is already in a like of sick behavior in a way. So just it's a psychological illness, so to say. But yeah, of course, it was just an example for this being over concerned, and I think I like this quote of yeah, health is not everything, but without health, everything is nothing. So this is it's a extreme wording of it, but I think it can give us some direction for this. Yeah, when really the health is missing in a extreme way, then life is diminished in such a in an extreme way. So, and of course we become concerned about it then a lot. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting quote. It's something to explore here. I will come back to it in a moment. Just about this thing with the hands. There's maybe also the plot twist with the hands is also, as we know that, like, if they are like, if you don't expose yourself to germs, to bacteria, actually your immune system will get weaker and weaker. So, and through the exposure to like environmental stressors, like certain bacteria and so on and so forth, we're actually getting a stronger immune system. So being overly concerned with hygiene, like to an extent that is just too much, will again weaken the immune system. And I think Christian sent me something where the claim was like some sort of like a study was then, and I don't know how valid it is, the study, how good it was, but the thought anyway is interesting, that children that grow up in a household where there is a dishwasher have a weaker immune system than where the washing is done by hand, because the washing that is done by hand is often not so like strongly taking off all the bacteria or whatever than the dishwasher. So yeah, we need the environmental stressors. It's like, okay, when like a certain exposure to cold is very good for our health, no? But now if you stand in the cold, like for the whole day, this without clothes is probably not a good idea. So it's very unlikely that it's a good idea. So to take the environmental stressors out completely is or this primal stressors is a very bad idea. It's again a balance, like that we need them in our life to be strong, to be healthy, but there's too much, and there's also things that are just like, I think, like very, very difficult for us to adapt to, and it's better to avoid them. And maybe now in this situation with the pandemic, it's for example certain people that have a very like weak immune system and that really need to be shielded from the virus, because the likelihood that they will not survive it is quite high. And it's not just old people, but also they're like people of every age that have problems with their immune system. Yeah, and to the quote that you mentioned, Felix, I think is a bit discussable. I think because I think I understand the quote. It makes sense to me, but as you say, it's very extreme. Like to say, like without health, like everything is nothing. Because it's almost like, yeah, what does it mean to be healthy? What does it actually, or is it is that something that we can, in a sense, like quantify, like say, okay, like if you have this and these parameters, you are healthy? Or is it like the absence of unnecessary pain, for example, which I think is a good standard to say, okay, there is the absence of unnecessary pain or something similar. Maybe there's a better way to say it. I think you understand. But is it not also that there are people that are really sick and where they would, where you would say, when you look at them, they are definitely sick, but they're still having a good time, or at least they still have like meaning in what they're doing, and they're doing important things. So how valid is it to say like things that are important to them also, and they have a certain enjoyment besides them being like sick and in pain and so on and so forth? Like, so how valid is it to say like without health everything is nothing? What do you think, guys? Max?
Hey, so the interesting thing is, for me at least, that concerning health, most of the people think it's about like the physical layer, so more like you already said, absence of unnecessary pain, for example, stuff like this, which is more or less on a physical layer, like embodiment stuff. And the question for me is, when does health also concern the more or less the mindful part, where it goes to philosophical methods and schemes, for example, Stoicism, stuff like this. So does this also play an important role in the discussion of being healthy? Or what do you think is the role of also, I don't know how to say in English, Charakterbildung? Yeah, so that's my question, I think.
Okay, yeah. Good. Yeah, it goes a bit in the direction of what we talked about last time, but I think you're adding another layer here, no? Like this is, which is the layer of the approach to life, of the attitude. Like not just the, like, is your social, are you in a healthy social environment, in a where you don't have too much stress and so on and so forth, what we talked about last time. But also, maybe we had this last time also, I'm not sure, like what is my attitude towards, like, what is the approach, like, is what is a problem for me? And like you mentioned Stoicism, where this is a big topic, no, the attitude towards life. Like this, basic idea in Stoicism that you are a part of the stream of life and you accept, in a sense, how that things happen, that things happen in this stream and it's okay, and you accept how the water is flowing and your part in the stream, and that through this attitude, that is, Stoicism and Buddhism are very, very close to another, that through this approach, or in this approach, maybe there lies an idea of healthiness, like that is, like you say, less about optimization of certain factors, but more about having a healthy attitude towards life. I invite you to say something, guys. As I said, I don't want it. I don't want to have it a monologue. Felix, do you want to say something about this?
Yeah, do you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, going back once again to the quote, and I definitely agree that it's discussable, and it's good discussing it. Without health, everything is nothing. And for me, maybe it points to this, the experience of the one who is sick or who is missing health. That when this is happening, like your experience is kind of diminished, or like when you talked about your illness with the, how was it called, tendinitis or something, tonsillitis, okay. And or when you came into the school and we did some wrestling and I got injured, and so I couldn't really like move in a, I couldn't really walk, or I couldn't really get up. So this made me so aware and conscious of how valuable these basic capabilities are. And I felt, but just by being injured and feeling the pain, and or feeling what now is all not possible, so just my consciousness was so influenced, or was so filled up with these sensations and with these thoughts, that it was just the primary need to become healthy again, or to regain the capability to get up without pain, and so on and so on. And that's what I want to add to this quote. And of course, it's, like I said, it's very extreme, and it's polemic in a way.
Mm-hmm. I just had a thought. Also, that is maybe not 100% related to what we're just talking about, but it is related to the health. It's last time I talked a little bit about Taleb's work also, and he has also this thing of taking things out instead of adding things. Like the first to have this as the first approach. Like what makes sense to take out, and he also talks about it like in health, like instead of adding a medication, for example, to take out like maybe something like sugar or something like this, like instead of adding something to what you're doing, like taking something away. It just came up, and I thought it's also interesting, and it also came up because I looked also through some of my notes on this topic, and as we just talked a bit about Stoicism, there is the idea in Dzogchen, which is part of the Buddhist tradition, where they teach to go into a state where there's no problem to solve. I liked it also in a sense because whom I also very much like is Karl Popper, who has this claim that every life is problem solving. Like life is problem solving. Like every living being is constantly solving problems to stay alive, and this is on a molecular basis also, but also like bigger for us humans. But in us, it's happening the whole time. Like that problems are being solved to keep us staying alive, and this makes a lot of sense. Yeah, this idea that all life means to solve problems, but then on the other hand to have this Dzogchen idea where they say, can you get into this state where there are no problems to solve? It's nothing to solve at the moment, which I think is maybe a bit connected also to this idea of doing nothing. And another thing that I just want to throw in here is from my friend Sasha Fast, who is calling this what I will talk about now, sub-optimization. And it means that basically what we already talked about, like for example, if you're 100% strict about your diet, but now your whole life is about your diet, so you have no time and energy anymore for the other parts of your life, you know, because all your energy, all your mind is absorbed by being very, very strict in the diet, and you're basically optimizing one part of the puzzle too much, which is just one part of the puzzle, because as we already explored last time, something like health is not just one thing, is a conglomerate of many things, is your whole, is the whole entity of who you are, and there are many things that you can look at if you want to categorize them. And a good diet is definitely one thing that isn't there, but it's not the thing, it's just one thing. So if you go too much into optimizing one part of it, you might actually deteriorate your health, because you're taking away all this energy from the other parts that you could also look at. Yeah, Peter, you want to say something?
Yeah, just going back to the Buddhist idea you mentioned, it also reminds me of this Taoist thinking of not going against the stream and not pushing against the problems, but more trying to go with the flow, I think. And also of how oftentimes people who live a very simple life seem to be healthier and more content in their lives than people who try to fix every detail and to concern themselves with a lot of things and do a lot of things to improve their lifestyle or their health or their nutrition or whatever. That it seems to be that's oftentimes the people who live quite simple and who have not a strict diet, but a very simple diet and simple occupation and not a lot of stuff to keep them in joy or to keep them occupied. That it seems that those people are often very content and also healthy and content with their health and not neurotic like some people in more modern lifestyle are, like we had before with washing their hands neurotically without even being able to control it, things like that.
And school, Felix or Maxi or whoever? Or you just have your hand
Oh, no.
No. Yeah.
Okay, can you hear me?
No.
So you have my question, so you can hear me, right? No, really, can you hear me?
Yeah, you of course. How am I going to answer no if I cannot?
Yeah, okay, sorry. Just one thing I wanted to like add was one thing that came to my mind actually was the thing with the balance in life. It also kind of is applicable to the thing with health, because like we already said, like health has many layers, and so it's not really possible to focus on one layer for 100%, like we said in nutrition. You can't like, or if you focus 100% on nutrition, there might be a lot of other things you're missing out or you're not thinking about. And so for me, it seems kind of similar to like trying to be in balance, but sometimes it actually might be that you're out of balance in some layers, and so you have to shift around. So like you can't always be 100% healthy in every layer. So it's like shifting around between the different layers of health. And I mean, it also doesn't mean just if you're because you're not 100% healthy in every layer, whatever that means, that you're not having a good life or a healthy life. Yeah, that was just one thing that came to my mind.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and about what Peter also mentioned with the simpleness of life, and this is also very much in like you said, in this different traditions, no, like whatever they are. Actually, it feels for me a bit like this in all these traditions is sort of present. Like in Christianity is present, in Buddhism is present, in Stoicism is present. It's also very present in Epicureanism, to say like this, like the philosophy of Epicure, who is sometimes seen as philosopher about pleasure, but the pleasure that he talks about is actually the pleasure of the simple things, not of, I don't know, like doing eating a lot of sugar or something like this, or doing traveling the world or something like this, but really having appreciation and enjoyment of the simple things that are there. And also the philosophical direction of Kynism, where our word of cynic comes from, but the Kynism which has nothing to do with cynicism, just etymologically is connected, where it's also about a very simple life. And I think less they talk about health, but it's always sort of included, like underlying concept in these things there, because I think usually no one is creating a system that is where they believe this is actually very bad for your health, but there is always this idea about health underlying in the development of such thought schools. School, is there? Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I've got another topic I'd like to open, but if someone else wants to, say something to the stuff now, that just saying I got another thing.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. So for me, an important question is like, what are my feedback systems and what are my diagnostics? Okay, so let's take movement, for example. Like what is my rehab approach, and how connected to the question, how do I realize when something is going wrong or about to go wrong? So, and the diagnostics, meaning right? It's a form of knowing or being able to speculate that about my own state and my own development. So, for example, like the guys from Fighting Monkey with their zero forms do a lot with this, calling it kinetic hygiene, for example, where it's not about developing mobility in a sense, but more about doing repetitive practice to realize how are my joints working together and so on. Just an example, or taking notes for me, I feel is an important thing, for example, as a feedback system. So writing down how do I feel, what did I do, how is it going, so I create like these loops, right, where I can reflective loops where I can engage with again and make comparisons to how is it before, how is it now, where am I going. And yeah, that would also interest me really a lot from you guys to hear what kind of approaches do you have for your prehab rehab or your feedback loops that you create, your feedback systems.
Yeah, it would be also interesting if someone has something to say about it. I need to think for a moment if I have to say something. Max, yeah, go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, cool. So my thought of a feedback system would not only consist of, I don't know, diagnostics in a way that you control yourself, so, but also in a way of your social environment, for example. Maybe if you get lost in your physical practice a lot in the following weeks, for example, and close relatives tell me, oh yeah, maybe think about this. Maybe this can be also kind of a diagnostic system where the social, the social factor is also involved, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But how do you mean it? Like, how do you mean it as a feedback system? So I understand, of course, if I engage with my friends or meet friends and we talk, and that is important for my well-being and for the others as well. But do you mean it in a way that I talk with them about, like health stuff, or like how is it going, and through that I get feedback, or what do you mean?
Yes, one way would be, for example, I don't know, talking about it, like talking about your practice or your injuries, for example, or what you do right now, and then maybe kind of getting an answer from your close relatives, for example, about your, I don't know, state of mind or physical state of mind at the moment. And the other possibility would, for example, be that you are being observed by your close relatives, for example. And through this observation of your practice, maybe they give you feedback in a way, like, I don't know, more or less in a conscious way, so that they, I don't know, come to you and say, okay, maybe you should take care a little bit more care about yourself. Don't be so, I don't know, harsh to yourself, for example, or think about getting enough sleep and don't be so stressed. I don't know. and maybe also by an unconscious reaction, which could result in, I don't know, avoidance behavior, or for example, I don't know, this is just a thought. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for clearing that up. Yeah, it sounds good. Also, what I talked about before, I also didn't mean it in this. I control myself all the time. So it's really more about also what you talked about with the I observe. I just observe and try to perceive, and also not to judge all the time. Or yeah, I think that's important factor, so to say, not to judge myself all the time, but just to see and yeah, realize what is going on, and just by that change is happening in itself already.
I think if I understand the question right about the feedback system, I was just thinking about it. What are my feedback systems? One very important, like one thing that I examine a lot is my energy. Like how do I feel energetically? And this has also a bit like several sub layers, I think. Like one is like how do I feel like after waking up? Like when do I wake up and how do I feel after waking up? And I always do this this checkup also like after I've eaten something, for example, to find out what makes sense for me to eat when, you know, like I don't usually eat carbohydrates in the morning, like maybe like a fruit I eat, but not more than that, because I just observed in myself that I feel sleepy after. And yeah, it doesn't make much sense to feel sleepy after you just woke up when you had a good night's sleep. So this is definitely one feedback, one thing I look at, like how do I feel energetically, like after sleep, after eating, yeah, also after moving, after exercising, after teaching, after talking, after being with people, you know, to also see, okay, does that take energy, like, or does it give energy, or does it stay the same? Like we talked about in meeting before, where I introduced this this idea of making prices that my friend Oscar gave me, that is not just about time and quality, but it's also about the energy that it takes you. So yeah, if something just, there are just things like that take much more energy and things that are taking less energy out of you, obviously, and this can be like examined in work, but I also do it, yeah, in a sense I do it constantly. I feel like yes, yesterday, for example, I felt very, yeah, I felt a bit sleepy, like in the morning already. I felt like, because the night was very bad, like with the kids, they were like constantly, one kid was like making noise or moving around and keeping us awake. So I didn't really sleep well. And then I had a bit of an argument with someone, and that was also like taking lots of energy from me. And then later in the day, I solved this argument with this person, and then my energy level was suddenly rising. Like at 6 o'clock, I felt like, oh, now it's like 10 o'clock in the morning for me. It feels like now I can do lots and lots of things. Now I'm very free with my energy. So I was, yeah, like really feeling how through the day it was going back a bit here and there, and when like things clicked more, and maybe it's also can be also a good time for me, this time at 6 o'clock, and then I suddenly felt like, oh, now I feel like, yeah, like let's go, like now I can go into learning or something like this, into something that takes a lot of where you need energy for. And another feedback system, like more physical feedback system about like movement for me would be definitely pain. I think this is pretty obvious. I think like everyone is using this, and it can be definitely done with something like what Felix mentioned, the zero form that Fatimanki is also using, so which is from Tai Chi. Yeah, to use like to always do the same thing basically, and through this you examine the changes throughout time. I'm not doing something like this personally. I'm more like seeing through whatever movements I do, how I feel with it. And that, for example, now when I'm carrying a lot the children, I sometimes examine like, okay, does it affect my hip? Because I had once that it was really affecting my hip because I was carrying Ephraim too much on one side, and then for a week my hip was very painful, and then it changed and then it went away. So I have this a bit in the back of my mind, and sometimes just examine the feeling in my hip through just moving a bit here and there, or examine the feeling in my knees through like sitting a bit up and down and playing a bit with it. If I'm on that day in a phase where I'm maybe not anyway like moving so much, maybe because it's more a computer day or a day where that is contain lots of walking but not so much diverse movement, that is in itself like always like an examination of how it is. If you also just improvise and play around and move in the open form basically. Yeah, so this is what came into my mind. Someone else has something to add to this idea of feedback?
Something I can also add is what I do a lot is like body scans. That just, it's also making a reference, and it can be also in a way a sort of meditation. You can describe it as that, but yeah, the approach is just it can be in sitting, it can be in standing, it can be in laying down. And in laying down, you get the most feedback as you have most contact to the ground, and then you just kind of scan how is the contact, how's the contact of the surfaces with the flesh, with the skin, and so you can get a feedback on your muscle tone, your muscular tension in the day, and it gives you kind of a reference, because it will always change when you do it again, so it's always different. But yeah, it's always different, but you're doing the same thing in a way, so that's really interesting for me. And it's great to hear the different approaches, and what just comes to my mind, yeah, that it's a lot about this, whatever approach fits for you or is good for you, fits your needs. But it seems to be a lot about this, I examine, I observe, and developing a mindset or habit and proficiency in that kind of engagement with yourself and the environment, I feel like. And whatever method you use, but this is like kind of developing in the background, so you get more comfortable, more familiar with that. I observe, I check how's my energy, or how's the contact to the ground, or how do I feel after eating that or that. So
Peter?
Yeah, just to what Max just said, I think that in order to really evaluate something with your feedback system, whatever that might be, you really kind of need to build up to it. Like, for example, the first time I did Feldenkrais, I felt things in my body I didn't really have the awareness for before. That was really strange. And so if I use something like this as a feedback system from the beginning, I think it's not so good, because then it is, because you're not used to checking yourself like that, or also the body scan. Perhaps if you do it for the first or second time, you feel things that you weren't aware before, and then you think, oh, that's strange. But, well, yeah, I just think it's very important to collect experience with your feedback system, so that you can actually make the evaluation of your well-being at that moment. Was just what I wanted to add.
That's a good point. I think that it can there can be a backlash. Like there can be things that you don't want to know. It's like a bit like going to a doctor and he makes a CT or MRI or something like this, and then he says, "Yeah, here you have some, I don't know, your shoulder has a tear here, and you didn't know, and there was never a problem. So maybe this information now makes this sort of flare up as an injury. Like suddenly you feel something. Yeah, suddenly you become aware and you feel, oh no, I have a problem in the shoulder. So it can be also good, like to be ignorant of what's going on.
Definitely. Yes.
Peter, you didn't say anything today. This is very sad. I want you to also say something. Would you add something to the discussion? Ah, nice.
Now I'm on. Well, I find it interesting to think about feedback. I was just thinking about in terms of running. I was writing a blog post about a qualitative idea of running, because running is an aspect where people put a lot of numbers on with their watches, and so feedback, you can, I don't know if any of you wear like Sunto or Garmin watches, but there's a lot of feedback from your pulse and how long have you been moving and yada yada yada, but it's a quantitative approach, and using Feldenkrais or some of these other methods mentioned, it's much more of a qualitative approach. And I personally enjoy taking off my shoes when I run, getting more sensory feedback, but also actually just adjusting the volume of my training towards feelings of soreness. Like, so obviously if I'm very sore, I'll do less than if I'm feeling completely fresh. So for me, I don't do like a daily scan, but I do like to do these joint circles in the morning. And then when I think about feedback, I'm mostly thinking about how to intelligently adjust volume of training during a certain day, because I think you can come quite far in terms of training for health with just learning how to listen. But it probably requires a lot of trial and error. And as many of you know, you can also train quite hard and not kill yourself, you know. So it's also important not to, you know, avoid challenge by constantly being aware of what you think you need all the time. I don't know. So there you go, a little rant from me.
Nice. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I have something going on in a moment, so that would be the last one now. School. Last final words for this meeting.
So no pressure, right? Okay, just one more thing that came to my mind. I forgot it. Was about damn, I really forgot it.
But Felix, I wanted to, maybe it comes back, Maxi, but Felix, I wanted to ask if the body scan that you're doing is based on a certain system or work of a certain person or something like that.
I learned it, or yeah, usually mainly from Feldenkrais method, but it is a approach which is used in a lot of different styles, right? So you can find it in mindfulness-based stress reduction, for example, or in different other somatic approaches. But yeah, in Feldenkrais, it's usually done in a systematic way also. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
It came to my mind again.
Yeah.
Just one thing, like sometimes I think it makes sense, like to from time to time to go out of health, or probably not on purpose, but like when you try out new things, you have the risk of going out of health, and this also helps like to make new experiences and also help you define what is health for yourself, because it's like you never can actually know if you're 100% healthy or living a 100% healthy life, because there's no one telling you, okay, now this you reach 100%. And so I think it's also, you can gain quite valuable experience from going out of health and getting sick or probably injured. So like I said, it's not wise to do it on purpose, but it can help you a lot to gain good experience and then get healthier after that, after going out of the balance and back in.
Nice. Good. Yeah, that was nice last words from you, Maxi. There's still something I want to talk about, so we will do it next time, which is the elements of health more just like focused on the physical thing, just looking at this layer of the physical a bit more closely. But we will do it next time. Good. Thank you, all of you, for participating in the discussion. And we talk, I guess, next week again. All right. Have a good day and bye.
See you. Bye.